The night was thick with the scent of blood and rain, the air heavy with something primal. The forest stretched like a black abyss, its towering trees swaying under the weight of the storm. In the distance, a wolf howled, a mournful sound that sent shivers down the spine of even the most fearless creatures. Celine Vitor moved like a whisper through the shadows, her silver-white hair flowing behind her like strands of moonlight. Her crimson eyes gleamed in the dark, sharp and knowing. She was a predator, a queen among vampires, but tonight, she hunted something far more dangerous than prey. Deep within the ruins of an ancient fortress, where stone crumbled beneath the weight of time, he was waiting. Chained, bleeding. A werewolf. Celine hesitated as she approached the dungeon's rusted gates. Werewolf. The name was spoken in fear, in reverence, whispered through the underworld like a curse. He was the most feared alpha, a beast of war and raw power. And now he was caged like an animal. The moonlight slanted through the iron bars, illuminating him, a monstrous beauty of flesh and rage. Broad shoulders, muscled arms streaked with blood, his chest rising and falling with slow, controlled breaths. He was shirtless, his skin marred with claw marks that had yet to heal, his dark hair damp from rain and sweat. And then his eyes snapped open. Golden, piercing, hungry. Celine stilled. A slow smirk curled at the corner of his lips as he took her in, gaze dragging over every inch of her in a way that sent heat curling through her veins. "I can smell you, vampire," he rasped, voice deep, rough like a growl. Sweet, forbidden. She arched a delicate brow, stepping closer, ignoring the way her instincts screamed at her to retreat. "You reek of blood and chains," she murmured, voice as smooth as silk. "I expected more from the infamous Werewolf." His chains rattled as he leaned forward, muscles flexing against the restraints. "Come closer then," he taunted, voice dropping into something dark, something wicked. "See for yourself if I'm as weak as I look." Celine tilted her head, amused. He was a caged beast, yes, but the fire in his eyes said he was far from broken. A dangerous thrill whispered through her. Ignoring the warning in her own mind, she stepped past the iron threshold, letting the door creak open just enough to let her slip inside. The space was small, suffocating, the scent of damp stone and wild male filling the air. The closer she got, the heavier the tension became, thick enough to steal the breath from her lungs. Kieran watched her like a predator tracking his prey, but it wasn't hunger for blood in his gaze. It was something darker, wilder. Then she felt it. A strange heat coiled low in her belly, a foreign sensation that sent a jolt of raw energy rippling through her limbs. The scent in the air changed, subtle but potent, a scent that was distinctly him. Celine's breath hitched. Kieran inhaled deeply, his smirk vanishing, replaced with something more intense. His pupils dilated. The air crackled. "Vampire," he murmured, voice husky, layered with something unspoken. "You shouldn't be here." Something was wrong. Her body felt different, like a storm was brewing beneath her skin, like something had woken inside her that should not exist. She stepped back. His golden eyes flared, sensing the shift in her. He moved before she could react, yanking against his chains, muscles straining, a guttural growl ripping from his throat. The iron groaned under the force. Celine's pulse quickened. She needed to leave. Now. But as she turned, the scent wrapped around her again, intoxicating, suffocating. Her body betrayed her, trembling, burning, aching in a way she did not understand. Kieran grinned, teeth sharp, fangs glinting under the moonlight. "Oh," he purred, voice edged with wicked amusement. "Now that is interesting." The night wind howled through the treetops, carrying the scent of rain and blood. Celine moved like a ghost through the endless forest, her body betraying her with every step. Her breath came fast, her skin fevered. Something was wrong. She had inhaled it. Him. The scent of the werewolf still clung to her like an invisible chain, tightening with every pulse of her heart. The moment she had stepped into Kieran Wolf's prison, something inside her had cracked, awakened, a raw, aching hunger unlike anything she had ever known. Vampires did not feel heat. They did not burn. And yet she did. She gritted her teeth, pressing a trembling hand to her chest. Why was her heart beating? The sound of it thundered in her ears, wild and untamed. It made no sense. She had not felt a heartbeat in over 200 years. The ground blurred beneath her as she ran, pushing herself faster, desperate to outrun the fire coursing through her veins. But the moment she stopped, leaning against the twisted bark of an ancient oak, she realized the truth. She was not running from herself. She was running from him. And yet, he was already here. A low growl rumbled through the darkness, deep and unmistakable. The fine hairs on the back of her neck rose, every instinct screaming at her to flee. Too late. A rush of wind, a blur of movement, and suddenly he was there. Kieran stepped from the shadows, his golden eyes glowing with an unnatural fire. He was no longer bound, no longer caged. He had escaped. And now, he had found her. Celine swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his gaze. He looked more dangerous under the moonlight, bare-chested, his muscled torso still streaked with blood and rain, dark hair falling over his sharp, predatory features. He had always been a force of nature, but now there was something more. Something wild, something hungry. She took a step back. Stay away. He tilted his head, his gaze darkening. You don't sound like you mean that, vampire. Her fingers curled into fists. She needed to fight, to run, to do anything but stand there, feeling the unbearable heat coil tighter inside her. Kieran inhaled deeply, and his smirk faded. His expression turned sharper, darker. You feel it, don't you? His voice was rough, edged with something raw. It's inside you now. Celine's breath hitched. She did feel it. It was more than attraction, more than desire. It was a bond forming against her will, chaining her to the very thing she was meant to destroy. I don't know what you did to me, she hissed, her voice uneven, but I will find a way to undo it. Kieran chuckled, the sound deep and knowing. Undo it. He moved closer, slow and deliberate, forcing her back until she was pinned against the ancient tree. He braced one arm beside her head, his body mere inches from hers. His heat wrapped around her, suffocating, intoxicating. Celine clenched her jaw, refusing to show weakness. Do not test me, Wolf. But Kieran only leaned in, his lips grazing the shell of her ear as he whispered, I think I already have. A violent shiver ran down her spine. Everything about this was wrong. She was a vampire, ethereal, untouchable, crafted from darkness itself. She did not crave. She did not burn. And yet, standing before this beast of a man, she felt like she might unravel. Kieran exhaled slowly, his breath warm against her skin. His golden eyes studied her, the fire in them flickering with something deeper. Your body is changing, he murmured. I can smell it. Celine sucked in a sharp breath. No, it couldn't be. Kieran's fingers brushed against her wrist, light, teasing, yet strong enough to send another shockwave through her. His voice dropped lower. Deny it all you want, vampire, but you're not the same as you were before you met me. Celine's lips parted, but no words came. Because he was right. A bond had been forged, unseen but unbreakable. And no matter how much she fought it, she was already his. Even if it destroyed them both. The storm had passed, but the air was still thick with the scent of rain, earth, and something far more dangerous. Him. Celine sat near the crackling fire, her body rigid, her fingers curling into the damp fabric of her cloak. She hadn't wanted to stop. She had wanted to keep running until she found a cure, an answer, anything to undo what was happening to her. But she was weak, hungry, not for blood, not for anything she had ever craved before. Kieran watched her from the other side of the flames, his golden eyes glowing like embers in the dark. He sat with effortless power, his bare torso gleaming in the firelight, his muscles shifting like coiled steel. The storm had left him soaked, his dark hair falling in damp strands over his sharp, unforgiving face. The sight of him unsettled her, because no matter how much she tried to ignore it, no matter how much she tried to fight the impossible truth, her body wanted him. Celine clenched her jaw. "Stop looking at me like that." Kieran smirked. "Like what?" "Like you know something I don't." He leaned forward, forearms resting on his knees, voice low and knowing. "Oh, I do, vampire. And so do you." Her fingers twitched. She wanted to strike him for his arrogance. She wanted to run. But she also wanted closer. The fire popped between them, the heat a pale imitation of what burned inside her. Celine swallowed hard. "I don't know what's happening to me." Kieran's smirk faded. For the first time since he had found her, something more serious, more dangerous, entered his gaze. He studied her, his nostrils flaring slightly as he inhaled. A low, almost imperceptible growl rumbled in his chest. "You're changing," he said, voice rough. "I can smell it on you." Her breath caught. "Changing." He nodded, slow, deliberate. "Your body isn't rejecting my scent." His eyes darkened, something primal flickering behind them. "It's accepting it." A cold shiver ran through her. "That's impossible." "You tell me," he murmured, gaze flicking to her throat, her pulse. "Your heart is beating, isn't it?" Celine pressed a hand to her chest. It was too fast, too strong. Vampires did not have heartbeats. Vampires did not feel heat. Vampires did not tremble under the gaze of a predator. And yet she was burning. Kieran moved before she could stop him, rising to his feet, stepping around the fire. The space between them vanished in seconds. Celine tensed, her breath hitching. "Don't." But he was already there, towering over her, all heat and dominance, a force too wild to be tamed. His scent wrapped around her, earth, rain, and something purely male. It made her dizzy, made the fire inside her coil tighter, unbearable. He reached out, his fingers tilting her chin up, forcing her to meet his gaze. His touch was warm, firm, as if daring her to pull away. She didn't. "I should kill you," she whispered, but the words lacked the venom they should have carried. Kieran's lips curled at the edges, but his golden eyes burned with something far deeper than amusement. "You should," he murmured, "but you won't." Celine's fangs pricked her lower lip, a sharp contrast to the warmth pooling in her core. The firelight flickered, casting shadows across his sharp jaw, his rough stubble, the slight part of his lips. So close. Her body screamed for distance, for control. But the hunger, the heat, it wanted him. Kieran exhaled, his thumb brushing over her jaw, featherlight, teasing. "You feel it, don't you?" His voice was thick, husky. "This isn't just my scent, vampire. This is something else." Celine's hands curled into fists. She had spent centuries mastering herself, controlling every craving, every weakness. But this was beyond control. She was changing. And Kieran Wolf was the reason why. The only question now was whether she would survive it. The night pulsed with tension. A storm brewed in the sky, thick clouds swirling above the forest like a beast waiting to strike. But the real storm, the real danger, was between them. Celine stood with her back against the ancient tree, her breath uneven, her body betraying her in ways she did not understand, in ways she did not want to understand. Kieran loomed before her, golden eyes glowing in the dim light, his presence a heat that coiled around her, suffocating and intoxicating at once. He was too close, too solid, too real. And yet she couldn't bring herself to push him away. His voice was low, rough, a growl that rumbled through her bones. "You're fighting it." Celine's fingers dug into the bark behind her, the rough texture grounding her, barely keeping her from unraveling. "I don't know what you're talking about." Kieran smirked, slow and knowing. A predator toying with his prey. Liar, he murmured. The word sent a pulse of something sharp through her. His scent wrapped around her again. Wild, earthy, dominant. It was like a drug, burning through her veins, making her limbs weak, her pulse race. She was a vampire. She was not supposed to feel this. Kieran tilted his head slightly, watching her as if he could hear every stuttered beat of her heart, every unsteady breath. Then he moved. His palm pressed against the tree beside her head, his body caging her in, the heat of him unbearable. Celine swallowed hard, crimson eyes narrowing. You're playing a dangerous game, Wolf. Kieran's smirk didn't fade. If anything, it deepened. Am I? His other hand lifted, fingers trailing up the bare skin of her wrist. A feather-light touch, yet it burned like fire. Celine shivered. She hated that he could see it, feel it. Hated that her body reacted to him in ways she couldn't stop. I should kill you, she whispered, but there was no venom in her voice. No conviction. Kieran leaned in, his lips barely a breath away from her ear. His voice was rough, husky. Then do it. Celine didn't move. She couldn't. Because in that moment, killing him was the last thing she wanted. Kieran exhaled slowly, deliberately, his warm breath fanning over her skin. You feel it just like I do, don't you? Her fingers twitched. She wanted to deny it, wanted to tear herself away, disappear into the night, and never look back. But she couldn't, because he was right. A dangerous heat coiled low in her belly, foreign and unbearable. She felt him in her blood. Kieran's fingers traced higher, brushing against the inside of her wrist, where her pulse thundered, betraying her. His touch was deliberate, slow, a test. And God's help her, she was failing. He pulled back just enough to look at her, golden eyes locked onto hers. Piercing. Knowing. You weren't supposed to inhale my scent, he murmured, voice thick with something dark. Your body wasn't meant to react like this. Celine's breathing hitched. Then fix it. Kieran chuckled, the sound deep and dangerous. Fix it. His fingers curled under her chin, tilting her face up. I don't think you want me to. She should have struck him, should have bared her fangs, broken his hold, reminded him that she was not something to be toyed with. But she didn't move, because the fire inside her, the unbearable, consuming heat, wasn't just his anymore. It was hers. Kieran's gaze dropped to her lips, and for a moment, the world went still. The night, the storm, the fire inside them, none of it mattered. Just him, just her. Two creatures who should have been enemies, standing on the edge of something neither of them could stop. The breaking point had come, and neither of them would escape unscathed. The night was thick with heat, though the storm had long since passed. Silence stretched between them, but it was not empty. It was charged, heavy with something far more dangerous than the battles they had fought before. Celine could still feel the ghost of Kieran's touch on her skin, the way his fingers had traced fire up her wrist, the way his scent clung to her like an unshakable curse. She had thought herself untouchable, immune to desire, to hunger. She had been wrong. Kieran stood before her, all raw power and untamed heat, his golden eyes locked onto her like a predator watching its prey. His breath was steady, but the tension in his body told her everything. He was fighting this just as much as she was. And he was losing. Celine swallowed hard, every instinct screaming at her to run. But she stayed, her fingers curling at her sides, nails digging into her palms. She was a vampire, a creature of the night, a predator in her own right. Yet in his presence, she felt hunted. Kieran took a slow step forward. She should have moved, should have warned him away. But she didn't. His voice was low, rough, dangerously soft. You're trembling. Celine forced herself to meet his gaze, though it burned to do so. I don't tremble. A dark smirk touched his lips. No. He reached out again, this time brushing his knuckles down the length of her arm. A fleeting, agonizing touch. Celine sucked in a sharp breath, her fangs pressing against her lower lip. Her body should not react like this. And yet, the warmth of his touch sent a violent shiver through her, igniting something deep in her core. Kieran exhaled slowly, his voice thick with something dangerous. "I can hear your pulse." Celine flinched, pressing a hand to her chest. The steady thrum of her heart was an unbearable reminder of her weakness, of how her body was betraying her. Vampires did not have heartbeats, not unless something was changing. Kieran's fingers traced higher, brushing against the curve of her jaw, tilting her face upward. He was so close now, his warmth a suffocating force, his scent filling her lungs, making her lightheaded. She should have shoved him away, should have sliced her claws across his chest and reminded him of what she was. But she didn't. Kieran's golden eyes burned into hers, searching, waiting. "Tell me to stop," he murmured. Celine's lips parted, but no words came, because she didn't want him to stop. The realization crashed into her, violent and undeniable. The fire in her veins wasn't fading. It was growing, spreading, consuming her from the inside out. She clenched her jaw, her voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't supposed to happen." Kieran's thumb brushed over her lower lip, slow, deliberate, teasing. "It already has." Celine's breath hitched. Her mind screamed at her to fight this, to break free before it was too late. But her body refused to move, caught in the gravitational pull of the man before her. A low growl rumbled in Kieran's chest, deep and primal. He was holding himself back, barely. She could see it in the tightness of his jaw, in the way his muscles coiled beneath his skin. He wanted her, badly. And God's help her, she wanted him too. She had fought wars, had torn through legions of enemies without hesitation. But this battle, she was losing. Kieran's breath ghosted over her skin as he leaned in, his voice a husky whisper. "You belong to me now, vampire." Celine's heart slammed against her ribs, because she knew, deep down, that he was right. And there was no turning back. The night whispered around them, the air thick with something primal, something ancient, something neither of them could escape. Celine's back pressed against the tree, her chest rising and falling too fast, her breath shallow. She wasn't supposed to feel like this. Not the heat licking at her skin, not the pulse hammering in her throat, not the unbearable, aching pull toward the man before her. And yet, she burned. Kieran stood mere inches away, his golden eyes molten in the dim light. His body was tense, coiled like a beast on the edge of losing control. She could see it in the clench of his jaw, in the way his fingers flexed at his sides, as if he were restraining himself from simply taking what his instincts demanded. Celine had spent centuries bending men to her will, reducing kings and warriors to nothing with a single glance. But Kieran was different. He didn't bow. He didn't submit. He conquered. And God's helper, some reckless, unspoken part of her wanted to be conquered. She should have fled, should have torn through the forest at inhuman speed, put miles between them, and never looked back. But she couldn't, because his scent, wild, masculine, and overpowering, wrapped around her like a shackle. Because the heat radiating from his body was pulling her in, trapping her in something deeper, darker, more dangerous than she had ever known. Kieran exhaled sharply. "You're trembling again." Celine's fingers curled into fists at her sides. "I told you, I don't tremble." A smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth, but there was something darker beneath it now, something raw, dangerous, and unrelenting. "Then explain this." Before she could react, he moved. Fast. A blur of heat and power, a force of nature slamming into her senses. His hands caged her in, palms pressing into the rough bark on either side of her head. His body loomed over hers, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating off him in waves. Celine sucked in a sharp breath. "Kieran." "Say it," he growled. His voice was lower now, rougher, a command more than a request. Celine clenched her jaw. Say what? His lips barely ghosted the edge of her ear, sending a violent shiver down her spine. That you feel it too. Her breath hitched. She could lie. Could tell him that whatever fire was unraveling inside her was nothing, that she could walk away and never think of him again. But the words wouldn't come, because they both know the truth. She felt it, the hunger, the unbearable pull of something far greater than herself. She felt him. Kieran's head dipped lower, his breath hot against her neck. His fingers twitched as if holding himself back from gripping her, from claiming her. Celine swallowed hard. This isn't supposed to happen. Kieran let out a low, humorless chuckle. Maybe not. His voice turned rough husky. But it's happening. She shivered again, betrayed by her own body, by the fire in her blood. His scent was drowning her, his presence overwhelming. And when he finally pulled back just enough to meet her gaze, the restraint in his eyes was unraveling. Celine should have feared it, should have feared him. But all she felt was heat, and for the first time in centuries, she didn't want to run from it. Kieran's fingers brushed over her jaw, slow and deliberate. His voice was softer now, but no less intense. Tell me to walk away. She parted her lips. The words were right there. But she didn't say them, because the truth was, she didn't want him to. And they both knew it. The night stretched endlessly around them, the world holding its breath as if it knew something irreversible was about to happen. Celine stood frozen beneath the weight of Kieran's gaze, her body betraying her in ways she could no longer deny. The ache in her blood had grown unbearable, an all-consuming fire that pulsed with every breath she took, with every second she remained in his presence. And Kieran was barely holding himself back. His hand still caged her in, his scent wrapping around her like a forbidden spell. Every muscle in his body was coiled, tense, as if he were on the verge of losing a battle he had fought too long. He exhaled sharply, golden eyes flickering with something raw, something untamed. You haven't told me to stop. Celine swallowed hard. She should. She should push him away, summon the coldness that had always been her shield. She should remind herself that she was a vampire, that he was a werewolf, and that their kind were never meant to be anything but enemies. But the fire between them didn't care for rules. Her fingers twitched at her sides. Would you listen if I did? A slow, dangerous smirk tugged at the corner of Kieran's lips. Probably not. Celine should have expected that answer, should have been ready for it. But the way his voice wrapped around her, low and filled with something dark, sent another violent shiver through her. Kieran caught it. Of course he did. His smirk faded, replaced by something even more intense. His fingers lifted, slow and deliberate, tracing along her jawline, a touch meant to tease, to torment. Celine's breath hitched. Kieran leaned in, his voice a husky whisper against her skin. You feel it, don't you? She closed her eyes, trying to shut him out, trying to shut out the unbearable truth clawing at her from within. Because she did feel it. She felt him in her blood, in her bones, in the very essence of her being. And it terrified her. Kieran's fingers slid lower, tracing the curve of her throat, lingering where her pulse betrayed her. You don't have to fight it. Celine's eyes snapped open, crimson meeting gold in a clash of fire and ice. I'm not afraid of you. Kieran's smirk returned, but this time, there was no amusement in it. Only heat, only hunger, only possession. I know, he murmured. Then, without warning, he moved. One moment, he was standing before her, radiating restrained power. The next, he had her pinned. His hands gripped her wrists, pressing them against the rough bark of the tree, his body caging hers in a way that left no space, no escape. Celine gasped, her mind reeling, her body burning. Too close. He was too close. Kieran's breath ghosted over her skin as he lowered his head, his lips brushing dangerously close to hers. You don't want me to stop. Celine's fangs pressed into her lower lip, her body trembling beneath the unbearable tension. Every instinct screamed at her to fight, to regain control. But she didn't. Because he was right. Her silence was answer enough. Kieran let out a deep, satisfied growl, his grip tightening ever so slightly. He had been patient, too patient, and now his control was slipping, piece by piece. Celine felt it, the shift in the air, the way his restraint was unraveling. And God's help her, she wanted to watch him break. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them could contain. This was the point of no return, and neither of them would walk away unchanged. The world had ceased to exist beyond them. Celine was no longer a creature of ice, nor was Kieran a beast of unshackled fury. In this moment, they were something else entirely, something raw, untamed, and irrevocably bound. Kieran's grip on her wrists remained firm, his body pressing into hers, surrounding her in a way that left no escape. Not that she wanted one. Her breaths came shallow, sharp. The fire inside her had spread, consuming the last remnants of logic, of restraint. Kieran's golden eyes burned into hers, searching, demanding. Say it. Celine swallowed, her fangs pressing into her lower lip. Say what? A slow, dangerous smirk curved his lips. That you're mine. Her heart slammed against her ribs. An impossible sound, a betrayal of everything she was. Vampires did not have heartbeats. They did not crave warmth, did not ache for something as base, as primitive, as this. And yet here she was, trembling beneath the weight of his dominance, her body betraying her with every shiver, every ragged breath. Kieran tilted his head, his gaze darkening as he leaned closer. His scent, rich and intoxicating, wrapped around her, drowning her in him. You already know it's true, he murmured, voice rough with restraint. Celine should have fought back, should have torn herself free and disappeared into the night. But she didn't, because the truth was she was already his. Her silence was all the answer Kieran needed. His growl vibrated through her, deep and possessive, as his grip tightened around her wrists, pressing them harder against the rough bark. Celine's breath hitched. Too much. He was too much, too strong, too consuming, too inescapable. And yet, she had never felt more alive. Kieran's lips brushed against her ear, his voice thick with barely contained hunger. I can feel your pulse. Celine clenched her jaw, refusing to acknowledge the impossible truth of her racing heart. But Kieran wasn't done. His fingers traced down the curve of her neck, lingering over the spot where her pulse betrayed her. Your body knows what you refuse to admit. Celine's nails dug into her palms, the war inside her reaching its breaking point. She had never lost control before. Not once. But Kieran was undoing her, piece by piece, breath by breath. And the worst part, she wanted him to. His lips brushed along her jaw, slow, deliberate, sending a violent tremor through her. Say it, Celine, he whispered. She shut her eyes, fighting the inferno raging inside her. She was a vampire, a predator, a creature born from the darkest depths of the night. But against him, she was something else, something vulnerable, something claimed. Kieran's patience was unraveling. She could feel it in the way his body coiled against hers, the way his grip trembled ever so slightly, as if even he was reaching his limit. Celine parted her lips, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm yours. The second the words left her mouth, something shattered. A low primal growl rumbled deep in Kieran's chest, his body tensing, his restraint snapping like a thread pulled too tight. His hands released her wrists only to slide down, his grip firm, possessive. Celine gasped, her fangs elongating as the fire inside her exploded. She had spent centuries fighting, resisting, pretending she could never feel something as foolish as need. But Kieran had ruined her, and now there was no going back. The night howled around them, as the predator within him finally claimed her, and Celine, for the first time in her existence, let herself be claimed, not as prey, but as his equal.